Good morning, this is Pauline.
And good morning, this is Imelda. And the Society news for Friday the 26th of October 2018 is the following. On Tuesday, there will be 2 coffee mornings held in aid of the Society. On Tuesday the 30th, that is. The first in the West Wight at the end of the Line Cafe Freshwater from 10:30 to 12 p.m. and the second at Bembridge at the Cloisters from 10:15 to 12 p.m. Please go along and support these if you are able. The swimming group are swimming this Tuesday, the 30th of October, in Ryde at the waterside pool. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the dolphins, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. On Wednesday, there's the weekly coffee morning at Millbrook House, Wednesday the 30th of October from 10:30 a.m. There will also be a low vision drop-in between 10 and 12 noon on Wednesday the 30th. Our weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. The Wednesday social group will be meeting on Wednesday the 30th of October at 2 p.m. in Mellbrook House. The entertainment this week will be given by the author Roy Perry. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. On Thursday, the social group are meeting on the 1st of November at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 until 2. You can knit or just have a chat. And then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. Any other news? Are you a budding author? This is your chance to have your story published and read by a celebrity. This year's short story writing competition theme is The Magic of Christmas. Entry forms available from Waterstones in Newport, Dress for Less in Newport, Millbrook House in Newport. For more information, please contact Chris Kane on 522205 or visit our website www.iwsb.org.uk. And now, retinitis pigmentosa. Representatives from the local retinitis pigmentosa group will be joining us for our coffee morning on Wednesday the 31st. The coffee morning runs from 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. and Colin MacArthur from the RP group will be giving a short talk about the group, what they do, and how to contact them at 11 a.m. We hope you'll be able to join us.
Fashion Focus Group. This is an article submitted by Masters Research student Faye from the University of Portsmouth. Hello, my name is Faye. I'm writing a paper on disability and clothing, analysing the issues that occur when choosing clothes and wearing them. This will then become project focused on visual impairment, looking at possible issues and plausible solutions. My reason for choosing this subject is my mum, who suffered with MS. By the end of her life, she was bedbound. She still wanted to be glamorous, but different complications made that difficult. So this project is close to my heart. To begin with, I'm trying to create a focus group based on the Isle of Wight to discuss fashion and clothing. It will be an informal discussion over coffee and cake, with hopefully lots of laughter. If you're nervous about coming along, please feel free to bring a friend or family member, as I am aiming to create a very relaxed environment. Thanks for your time, and I hope to meet some of you at the focus group. Our trustee, Ruth Hollingshead, is Faye's point of contact at Site for Wight. If you would like to register an interest in taking part in Faye's fashion and clothing focus group, please contact the Society on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. They will then pass your details to Ruth. The Freshwater Book Group will be meeting in the library at 11 until noon next Tuesday, the 30th of October. They are a very friendly group and they read some interesting and varied books, either on memory stick or disc. There are also hot drinks available. Now we move to the scaffolding news. And we start with Bay and Ventnor area. There is currently scaffolding at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown, 11A and 11B St John's Road, Sandown, 46 Fitzroy Street, Sandown. The Toymaster, 103 High Street, Sandown. The scaffolding is actually up in Albion Road. Sandown Library, 119 High Street, Sandown. Corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor, Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor. There are currently hoardings at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Junction of St Boniface Road, Arthur's Hill, Shanklin. Car Park, Brooks Close, Bembridge. There are currently skips at 32 Fallen Road, Bembridge.
And in the Cowes area, there is currently scaffolding at 93 High Street, Cowes, behind hoarding. Cowes Library, Beckford Road, Cowes, also up in West Hill Road. There are currently hoardings at 93 High Street, Cowes, and there are currently skips at 13 Oakfield Road, East Cowes, and 12 Princess Close, East Cowes. Newport area, there is currently scaffolding at Key Cottage, 12 Key Street, Newport, the EE Shop, 122 High Street, Newport, 61A Pyle Street, Newport, 10 St James Street, Newport, 75 St James Street, Newport, National West Bank, 107 St James Street, Newport, Santander, 26 St James Street, Newport. Scaffolding is also up around the corner in Pyle Street. The Samaritan Shop, Lugley Street, Newport, and also up in Chain Lane. There are currently skips at 38 Highfield Road, Newport, 38 Victoria Road, Newport, 65 Medina Avenue, Newport. And in the Ryde area, there is currently scaffolding at My Dentist, 10 to 11 Cross Street, Ryde, Boots, 170 High Street, Ryde, Hills Court, High Street and Newport Street, Ryde, 47 George Street, Ryde, 12A High Street, Ryde, 91 High Street, Ryde, 105 High Street, Ryde. The Castle Inn, 164 High Street, Ryde, and Pier View Court, St Thomas Street, Ryde, Seaview Pharmacy, Pier Road, Seaview, and there are currently skips at 27 Daniel Street, Ryde, 91 Monkton Street, Ryde, Woodlands, High Road, Seaview. And in the Wight area, there is currently scaffolding at Duo 86 Avenue Road, Freshwater, and the Barn, Mine Road, Thorley.
This week's In Touch. Are your eyes priceless? An advertising campaign in Australia angering blind people, and why is the Scottish Government changing its approach to assessing blind people for personal independence payments? Show more. Following the independence referendum in 2014, Scotland was granted new devolution powers, including taking control of a selection of welfare benefits. One of the changes will be the way in which people whose vision is never going to improve are assessed for personal independence payment, or PIP. Reporter Ian Hamilton finds out what these changes will mean for blind people living in Scotland. The well-known international company Specsavers recently launched an advertising campaign in Australia and New Zealand in a bid to encourage more people to have their eyes tested. A short film and a television ad asked people, how much would you sell your eyes for? People are filmed answering the question with difficulty and emotion, and most conclude they wouldn't sell their eyes. Blind lawyer and mum Fiona Woods feels this campaign devalues the lives of blind people and sets out her objections, and Specsavers states its position. University students throughout the UK have survived their first hectic weeks. We hear from Christiana Zunde, who attends at a university in Yorkshire, gives us a snapshot of what she is studying and how she is settling in. The presenter will be Peter Wight and the producer Lee Kumartat.
And now we come to the Isle of Wight County Press for Friday the 26th of October 2018. And the headline is, just one headline this week, Family Shock at Meningitis Death. A young man who died suddenly of meningitis was told by paramedics he had the flu. 5 hours later, he was in a coma from which he never woke up. An ambulance crew was called to his house the morning he started feeling ill, but decided he didn't need to be taken to hospital. The grieving family of Christopher Davey, 23, of Carter Avenue, Shanklin, are campaigning to raise awareness of the devastating disease so the same thing does not happen again. Christopher began feeling ill on Saturday, October the 6th. He was hunched up with a stiff neck, vomiting, and had a severe headache. His sister, Tony David Tiller, phoned an ambulance, which arrived at 9 a.m. The crew spent nearly 2 hours checking Chris over before telling him it was flu and he didn't need to be taken to hospital. It was so quick, Tony said. He was in work the night before, perfectly healthy. Chris, a chef at the Yarborough Inn, Brading, and former pupil of Sandown High, wasn't displaying the well-known meningitis rash, and his family wanted to raise awareness of the lesser-known symptoms so other people aren't misdiagnosed. After the ambulance left, Chris's condition got worse, and he collapsed. Tony phoned 999 again, and was told they would not get another ambulance for 2 hours. Tony said, "I got him back into bed, but he was screaming and writhing because of the pain in his head. I rang again, and the call handler could hear him screaming in the background, but still it was a 2-hour wait. He then started having a seizure, so we carried him out to my car. I knew then that we couldn't wait for 2 hours. So we drove him from Shanklin to the hospital. From the moment we got there, the hospital staff were really good. Immediately they suspected meningitis, and they intubated him and put him into an induced coma," Tony said. A scan revealed severe swelling on his brain. He had developed pneumonia and septicemia, and his family were told he may never wake up. On Tuesday, October the 9th, he died. Tony said, "It is terrifying how quickly it can happen to a really healthy young man. This all happened when his life was going so well. A new house, a new car, a new job, and planning his first proper holiday to New York. Clearly this infection doesn't discriminate."
And his family say he was a truly amazing person and brought happiness wherever he was. As a family, we were so proud of him, and as shown by the tremendous support we've been given, he was loved by so many. Chris has left a hole in our lives that nothing could ever fill. We will never forget him, and we will never stop campaigning for awareness. I don't blame the ambulance staff. He didn't have the rash or sensitivity to light most people associate with meningitis. Since this happened, I've learnt the rash is often the last symptom to appear and sometimes doesn't appear at all. As a family, we think it's a shame later on in the day the ambulance staff were so busy they were unable to get to us. In hindsight, from the later phone calls, Chris should have been made a priority, but it just goes to show what strain they are all under. Hopefully this has been a big lesson for everybody. Chris had signed up to the organ donor register, and in less than 3 days his awareness fundraiser has raised more than £2,500. Christopher's funeral is on Monday at 2:15 p.m. at the Isle of Wight crematorium, followed by a wake at the Agwick Hotel, Shanklin, from 3:30 p.m. A spokesperson for Isle of Wight NHS Trust said, "Our thoughts and deepest sympathies go to the family and friends of Christopher. Meningitis can be difficult to detect. We are reviewing what happened during the time the ambulance service was involved with Christopher's care, and the death has been reported to the coroner."
Ferry destroys yacht as it crashes in thick fog. Investigations have been launched and a red funnel captain suspended after a car ferry crashed in thick fog, sinking a yacht worth £200,000. The 7 a.m. Red Falcon, sailing from Southampton, collided with moored yachts that ran aground just off East Cowes on Sunday morning. Rescue teams rushed to the scene after cries for help were heard, sparking fears people were in the water, but that turned out not to be the case. The Maritime and Coast Guard Agency has launched an investigation, and the master and navigational team at the helm have been suspended. Red Funnel Chief Executive Fran Collins said, "Red Funnel has a proactive safety management culture, and a detailed internal investigation into this incident has been initiated to identify the cause. While the investigation is underway, the navigational team involved in the incident will not be roisted on board, which is in accordance with best practice. As normal, the investigation will also consider any other similar incidents that have occurred, both internally and industry-wide, and will seek to identify any common factors. Prior to completion of the report, however, and as a precautionary measure, some amendments to our bridge operating procedures in reduced visibility have been made, although these changes are not expected to impact on the reliability of the service or the frequency of weather-related cancellations. Following delays and cancellations throughout the day, services returned to normal on Monday morning. The wreckage of the sunken yacht, a 32-foot Contessa, the Grey Lag, was discovered from Cowes Harbour and recovered by MMC Diving Services. Its owner, Nigel Minchin, who has moored the yacht in Cowes for more than 20 years, said it would cost between £100,000 and £200,000 to replace. Following an initial survey, MMC Director Sam Connolly said, "It soon became apparent it was not a salvage operation but a wreck removal. Divers found the rear of the boat, the transom, the engine and gearbox had been smashed off the main body of the vehicle. They found the engine and smaller items, such as the galley cooker, buried in the mud." Sam said, "It was sad to see someone's pride and joy become a complete total loss. For an old vessel, she was clearly very well looked after." The crash was the third incident in recent months. On September the 29th, 2 people were injured when the Red Falcon collided with a motorboat as it approached East Cowes. 2 days earlier, again in foggy conditions, the Red Eagle car ferry ploughed through moorings at Cowes Harbour and cut several boats adrift in the Solent. There was further misery on Sunday evening after Wight Link was forced to cancel sailings on its Yarmouth and Lymington route. Customers were told the cancellation was due to issues with the engine, a broken clutch, and were advised to travel on the Fishbourne to Portsmouth route. Yesterday, Thursday, the company cancelled a number of sailings on the Yarmouth route because of a mechanical issue. A Whiteleaf spokesman said this was due to an issue with an essential piece of equipment on one of its ships.
Persistent evaders who have multiple unpaid parking fines and those scamming the Blue Badge scheme could soon face a crackdown. The Isle of Wight Council's new vehicle removal policy has been earmarked for approval by Transport Cabinet member Councillor Ian Ward. He will rubber stamp the policy under delegated powers on Monday, providing the decision is not called in by another councillor. The policy would see vehicles parked in contravention of the rules taken to a storage facility if the owners are repeat offenders. It will target persistent evaders who park where they should not, fraudulent use of disabled parking, fraudulent use of council permits or pay and display parking tickets, and those whose parking causes a serious obstruction to emergency services and other road users. Persistent evaders are classified as keepers of vehicles with multiple unpaid parking fines or penalty charge notices, PCNs. If the registered keeper has 3 or more recorded contraventions and the PCNs are not paid, represented or appealed against within the statutory time limits, action will be taken. It is proposed a persistent evader's vehicle can be removed following the issue of a further penalty charge notice. There are a small number of vehicles which have many unpaid PCNs and some have no registered keeper. As of last month, there were 76 vehicles with more than 10 PCNs, totalling £45,952. The new policy means a contractor will be instructed to seize and impound the vehicle. The owner, keeper, will be required to pay associated costs, £105 for vehicle removal, £12 per day vehicle storage and £50 vehicle disposal. In addition, they will be required to pay the amount due for all the penalty charge notices issued on the vehicle to date. A second recommendation is Councillor Ward enters into negotiations with Island Roads to extend its contract to include the removal, storage and disposal of the vehicles, or, if unsuccessful, procure a new contractor.
The County Press's Megan in line for a top award. County Press reporter Megan Baines has been shortlisted for a National Journalism Reward. Megan, 25 from East Cowes, is one of just 4 reporters shortlisted for the National Council for the Training of Journalists, Apprentice of the Year Award. Megan first joined the County Press 18 months ago as a trainee, working in the newsroom as well as attending Highbury College 1 day a week. 6 months ago, she was appointed the BBC-funded local democracy reporter for the island, a job normally reserved for a senior reporter. Her first scoop to be picked up by the BBC, of which she was particularly proud, was about a couple caught having sex in Lord Louis Library, Newport. Originally from Gloucestershire, Megan attended the University of East Anglia in Norwich, where she took a degree in American literature and creative writing. She set to work taking over the student paper and becoming a thorn in the side of the Students' Union. She submitted her final assignments in the summer of 2017 and the following Monday started a job at the County Press. Megan says, "It feels very surreal to be shortlisted, and I'm incredibly grateful to my tutor Paul Foster and deputy editor Rachel Rosewall, who nominated me. I'm lucky in that I have such a supportive and patient team behind me, both at college and at work, particularly the chief reporter Emily Pearce, who has helped me tackle the challenge of council reporting." Rachel said, "As the County Press's deputy editor and training officer, I am delighted Megan has been shortlisted for the NCTJ Apprentice of the Year Award, but I'm not surprised." Megan joined the County Press as a trainee, but it didn't take long to see she had something special. She has a mature approach to work and goes above and beyond to deliver top-quality stories week after week. She's also proved to be a popular and reliable member of the team.
Plans for a £500,000 dinosaur-themed adventure golf course in Sandown have been approved by the Isle of Wight Council. Dino Islands, a golf adventure, is due to open in Easter next year. Developer Heritage Attractions said it was a vital step forward for the regeneration of Sandown seafront. It will be the latest attraction at Sandham Gardens, following Sandham Carts and a proposed Sky Trail rope course. The multi-level Crazy Golf Course will span more than 2,000 square metres and include life-size dinosaurs, water features and obstacles such as volcanoes, bridges and waterfalls. The family-friendly 18-hole course will be suitable for all ages. Marino Zanti of Heritage Attractions said, "We're thrilled the next step in our ambitious plans for Sandham Gardens has been given the go-ahead. The course is being designed and constructed by Rock Art UK, international specialists and a market leader in adventure golf design and construction. We believe this development is vital for the regeneration of Sandown and are looking forward to bringing it to life."
Town councillor in transphobic row. A Cowes town councillor has come under fire for making allegedly transphobic comments on social media. Councillor Jean Bartram, a Green Party member who stood for the Isle of Wight Council last year, was discussing the government's consultation on the Gender Recognition Act. While many believe the current requirements to change genders legally are too onerous, others have raised concerns about the impact on women's spaces and rights if anyone is able to self-identify as female. However, the language used by Councillor Bartram on Facebook has been perceived by some as transphobic. In one post she says, "Trans people may well have self-ID driving licenses, but I will be damned if some hairy arse bloke walks into my female changing room at the gym." She said in another, "If you have a penis, then it's the gents, isn't it?" When contacted by the county press to ask if she regretted her choice of language, Councillor Bartram said, "I'm sorry to hear someone is upset. I will passionately support LGBTIQA+ rights. I've marched with gay and the trans people in Pride, both here and on the mainland many times, and I will continue to campaign against hate crime in my local community." Her husband, fellow town councillor Roger Bartram, performs as drag queen Patsy Cabaret. Isle of Wight Green Party Chair Daniel Jones said, "Accusations of transphobia were not credible for anyone who knew Councillor Bartram or her family. Light-hearted comments on the personal Facebook page should not be taken as representative of her views, the Green Party or Cowes Town Council," he said. There is an ongoing debate about transgender access to women's spaces, highly relevant to town councillors who have to make decisions about public toilets and services for vulnerable women and children. We trust this debate can be resolved without resorting to personal attacks on people who volunteer to serve island communities. However, her comments have been described as misinformed and hateful. Isle of Wight Pride said, "We're always keen to encourage debate and education about key issues, but there is a clear line between debate and misinformation hate. Sadly, our trans community still faces persecution around the world. The Gender Recognition Act is outdated and does not provide adequate protections or opportunities for trans people to just be themselves. This should not and does not change anything for women's rights."
Only one Isle of Wight school hit the national average with its GCSE results this year. The rest were below or well below average. Figures published by the Department for Education also showed 46% of 16-year-olds on the Isle of Wight failed to pass their English and Maths GCSEs. Those 489 students are now facing compulsory resits in June next year. A total of 1,070 students took their GCSEs this year, with exams graded on a scale of 1 to 9. Cowes Enterprise College was ranked the best school on the island with an Attainment 8 score of 49.6. The Attainment 8 score is based on students' overall results in up to 8 exams, including English and Maths. At the bottom of the Isle of Wight league table were the Isle of Wight Studio School with an Attainment 8 score of 31.1 and Carisbrooke College with 33.8. The national average for state-funded schools in England was 46.4. 50% of Cowes students achieved a grade 5 or above in English and Maths, compared to 23% at Carisbrooke and 8% at the Isle of Wight Studio School. The Island Free School, Ride School and the Priory School did not submit their results to the government. As schools run independently of the Isle of Wight Council, they were not obliged to. Executive Head Teacher and Head of Carisbrooke College, Matthew Parr-Berman, said, "In among the poor set of results, there were some really excellent individual results." He said the results were not unexpected and admitted the children deserve better. Mr. Parr-Berman said previous recruitment issues and changes at the school, which may have adversely affected the results, had since been resolved. He added, "We want to be amazing and there is no reason we can't get there. We've put in a lot of changes to core subjects and have moved sites." Cowes was celebrating the news each student had achieved, on average a fifth of a GCSE grade better per subject than similar students nationally. Principal Rachel Kitley said, "The significant and well-deserved success which has been achieved is a testament to the hard work and dedication of our students and teachers." Ride School said it was delighted with a pass rate of 96% at English language and 92% at Maths, with more than half of English language exams and 47% of Maths exams scoring top grades. 86% of pupils achieved 5 or more 9 to 4, equivalent to A star to C grades, including Maths and English. We've always been open about our exam results.
Landlord fined over damp home. A landlord has been fined thousands of pounds after he allowed a Ventnor family with 3 young children to live in dangerous and damp conditions. Daniel John Tomlinson of Park Drive, Ilkeston, Derbyshire, was found guilty of 1 count of failing to comply with an improvement notice at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Tomlinson did not attend court and was found guilty in his absence. The notice was served by the Isle of Wight Council's housing enforcement team on his property in Mitchell Avenue. The court heard there were numerous deficiencies, leading to 9 hazards, including excess cold, damp mould, growth and fire risk to the family, whose children were all aged under 8. Magistrates fined Tomlinson £4,500, ordered him to pay £993 in court costs and a surcharge of £170, a total of £5,663. Cabinet members for Planning and Housing, Councillor Barry Abraham, said, "This council will not hesitate to take legal action against any landlord who fails to maintain their properties and who leaves people living in homes that are a health hazard." This landlord thought he would ignore the notice, and it has cost him more than £5,500. The case is ample warning. Landowners will be brought before the courts and potentially hit hard in the pocket for this type of offence.
Parents who blocked the road during the school run were the target of a police operation. Officers descended on Wellington Road, Newport, where several schools are based, after road safety concerns were raised by parents and residents. They patrolled the area during the school run over 1 week, issuing information leaflets to 40 drivers and fining one who was dangerously parked. The aim was to ensure it was safe for children to cross the road and drivers did not cause obstructions. PC Ben Sharland said, "The operation was a real success. We received an overwhelming amount of positive feedback from parents walking their children to school. Our policy was to issue everyone with an information sheet and only to issue a fixed penalty notice to those who had already been warned. We will repeat the operation with no notice at various times during the school year to reinforce the message."
Council steps into hotel mural row. An enforcement investigation has been opened into the controversial paintwork on the Nightingale Hotel in Shanklin. The Isle of Wight Council has confirmed the planning authority has concluded the hotel owners should have sought advertisement consent before carrying out the changes to the exterior. Hotel owner Dino Joachim said he feared the process would have inevitably led to removal of the artwork. The hotel, which used to be Keats Green in honour of island visitor, the poet John Keats, is now paying homage to a different cultural hero, the star of the 1970 Isle of Wight festival, after street artist Tony Trowbridge incorporated a huge image of Hendrix on the hotel exterior this week. Mr. Joachim said, "The council is claiming artwork on the hotel is advertisement, for which a permit would be necessary. They have stated it will be denied if we apply for it, so the artwork needs to be removed. The other option is we go into their offices and come to a compromise regarding what is painted on our building. We feel Councillor Chris Quirk has a lot of other pressing matters he should be dealing with regarding improving our island and shouldn't concern himself with the colour of our building." An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, "Following the receipt of complaints relating to paintwork at the Nightingale Hotel, the Planning Authority has opened an enforcement investigation. Officers have visited the premises, spoken to the owners, and concluded advertisement consent would have been required for the works that have been carried out. Because no consent has been gained for the works, officers are now in discussion with the owners of the hotel to remedy the breach in planning control. Because this is an ongoing investigation, the Planning Authority cannot comment on the merits of the works." A poll on the County Press Facebook page showed 83% of people were in favour of the artwork, while 17% preferred the previous plain cream-coloured frontage. There were 2,100 votes cast.
A scheme to revamp the former National Westminster Bank in Cowes High Street by turning it into a shopping arcade and bed and breakfast accommodation will go before the Isle of Wight Council planning bosses on Tuesday. The proposal, recommended for conditional approval, has already seen the bank converted into a parade of shops with a restaurant and post office also planned. However, concerns have been raised the plans could impact on Isle of Wight Council regeneration plans for the building and for Fountain Yard. Planners say no alternative plans have been lodged. In total, 17 bedrooms would be created as part of planned bed and breakfast accommodation on the first and second floors. Members of Cowes Town Council have objected on the grounds the scheme would not enhance the conservation area, would be out of keeping with the existing properties in the area, and would put extra pressure on parking in the town. 11 letters of objection have also been received from residents saying Cowes did not need any more coffee shops and the design of the building was austere and featureless. In the report, officers say the building has little or no architectural merit. Part of the proposal includes a post office in the arcade to replace the one lost to Cowes Town Centre when the co-op closed.
Repair work to improve Ford. Work is underway to improve Froglands Ford in Carisbrooke, which locals have described as a rat run. The road has been closed while works are carried out to improve the condition of the Ford. Residents are campaigning to preserve the area as a beauty spot and say it is used as a rat run and a car wash for 4x4 vehicles. An Island Road spokesperson said, "The works include repairs to both the approach ramps and the base of the Ford. The work is expected to be completed by the end of next week, and we hope it will address some of the issues reported by residents recently." Graham Montrose lives nearby, and the wash runs down through his garden. During the summer, he saw an average of one car each week getting stuck in the Ford, and during the first week of September, he counted 7 cars trapped. He blames sat-navs and a lack of signage to warn tourists it is not an appropriate route to Carisbrooke Castle. He said of the latest works, "They don't know what to do next. They're trying to pump out the water, and they have gravel for the base. But they did this 5 years ago, to no avail. It would like it made one way. I would like it made one way. But we have repeatedly been told making this a one-way route would speed up traffic. However, I see there is now a proposal for Pan Lane to be made one way to slow traffic down for pedestrian safety.
A lack of support at St Mary's Hospital left trainee doctors working alone, making decisions about clinical care they were not qualified to make, and patients suffered as a result. The General Medical Council, GMC, has raised serious concerns about patient safety at the hospital following an inspection in February, where it found staff were asked to make decisions they were not medically qualified to make. They also found evidence of bullying and racism. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust said the concerns had been actively addressed over the past 6 months. Medical Director Alistair Flowerdew was appointed in June. He said, "I am personally taking steps to ensure that all the outstanding requirements are completed. These include greater supervision and support of junior doctors by their consultants and restructuring the handover processes to ensure that continuity of care and patient safety are maintained at all times." Concerns identified by the GMC were raised with the Trust and Health Education England Wessex, that's the HEE, immediately following the visit. Both have given the regular assurances the issues are being addressed. Director of Education and Standards at the GMC, Professor Colin Melville, said, "We set high standards for medical education and make no excuses for doing so. Patients rightly expect and deserve good care from their doctors, and it is important doctors have the support they need to do the job well. The serious concerns on the Isle of Wight fall below the high standards we set. It is a site we've been monitoring for some time, and we've been given assurances the issues are being addressed as a priority."
Iris failure slammed. Now, this is an article by Megan that we were mentioning at the beginning of the reading. An Isle of Wight resident attempted suicide after a lack of support from the island's Drug and Alcohol Service, a health watchdog has said. Crippled by increased demand and staff shortages, the Island Recovery Integration Service, IRIS, stopped taking alcohol referrals in March. However, island GPs were not told until June. For 3 months, they had been referring patients to a service that did not exist. The Isle of Wight National Health Service Trust, which runs IRIS, has since announced plans to outsource the service to a specialist provider, Inclusion. IRIS stopped taking new referrals for alcohol treatment because it could not cope with the number it was receiving. Inclusion has now opened the service up to new referrals. Speaking at an Isle of Wight Council scrutiny meeting for adult health and social care, Isle of Wight Health Watch Manager Joanna Smith said, "We can't underestimate the effect this loss of service has had on people on the island. We know of one person who has contacted us who has attempted suicide because there hasn't been a service in place. It has had a huge impact on people." Miss Smith said pregnant women struggling with alcohol misuse had not had a home visit since March. The voluntary sector was only told of the problems of IRIS months after it stopped taking new referrals. Some voluntary sector agencies will not support people who are drinking or intoxicated. Miss Smith said, "If they had known there was not this service, they could have renewed their policy for accepting people." IRIS staff had previously slammed the Trust's failure to support the award-winning service, rated good by the Care Quality Commission, and accused bosses of ignoring their concerns. 1/3 of the staff have taken long-term sick leave due to stress anxiety, which coupled with vacancies had left the service struggling to cope. Barbara Suttle, Director of Nursing, Midwifery, Allied Health Professionals and Community Services, said, "We've managed to limp along on the heroic efforts of our staff, but we have not given the service that we should have done. If this goes how it should, it will be a good example of how we can do things if we work collectively." Scrutiny member Carl Ross-Love quizzed health bosses over the decision to merge the drug and alcohol service into one. It's a huge failure, but the failure starts when you merge two services. When you end up with a single provider and that provider does wrong, you have obviously nothing. And then the National Health Service failed to respond, he said. Trust Chief Executive Maggie Oldham said, "I am profoundly sorry the service has found itself in this situation. It was not a service that was on our radar when I arrived at the Trust."
And the Isle of Wight's new provider of drug and alcohol services has pledged to support people with addictions and help build safer communities.
And now that's the end of our reading for the first part of the paper. So say goodbye from Imelda and have a nice weekend, but note it's colder.
And goodbye from Pauline.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen.
Hello, I'm Jan.
And we'll be reading the letters and features section of the County Press for you this week. Starting with a letter from David Castle, Chairman of the Isle of Wight Beekeepers Association, from Brading, and it's headlined Hornet Danger. The Isle of Wight beekeepers are grateful for the article on the Asian hornet in the County Press of the 19th of the 10th. If this creature were to establish in this country, it would devastate the populations of honeybees and other pollinators, including bumblebees and dragonflies. French beekeepers are reporting huge colony losses where the hornet is making ground. It has already made inroads into the Channel Islands with devastating attacks on beehives. It is important the public is aware of this creature and the damage it can cause. Thankfully, Britain, being an island, restricts their passage, although some nests have been found. The Isle of Wight is an area that is vulnerable due to its location near to ports and shipping from abroad. Isle of Wight beekeepers are leaving hornet traps near bee colonies in an attempt to locate any possible hornets that make their way here. The Beekeepers' Annual Honey Show is being held in Cows Social Club, Park Road, Cows, on November the 3rd from 2 p.m, and an Asian hornet preserved in resin will be on display.
And this is about coughs and sneezes. And the name of an address supplied but withheld. I would like to send a poignant message to any passenger who knowingly travels with illness, and how understanding common viruses can seriously impact on other people's lives. Travelling on the 4 p.m. Southampton to East Cowes Red Funnel Ferry on Friday, August the 31st, to begin our 2-week break on the Isle of Wight, we were both well and looking forward to our long-awaited holiday, which ultimately became a complete write-off and left me devastated with a potentially life-threatening illness. As a pensioner, I used the small passenger lift to descend to the car deck prior to disembarkation at East Cowes. A younger male passenger on crutches also got into the lift, and in close proximity he breathed, "He had a cold," but his persistent chesty cough suggested something more serious. Within days, I was seeking urgent medical attention, and a local GP requested an emergency ambulance for my admission to St Mary's Hospital for suspected pneumonia. Doctors subsequently confirmed the timeline of my symptoms were entirely consistent with exposure to contagious bacterial respiratory infection on my travel day, and all indications suggest the male passenger has been the most likely source of transmission. He had been fully aware he was unwell when he chose to share a confined space with a pensioner, who often have weaker immune systems. Constantly talking, he soon consumed the confined lift space with his breath, adding, He planned to visit his mother, who lived in Cowes, so maybe infected her, or other passengers on the same ferry as well. Having spent most of my holiday time in hospital, I was considerate enough on my ferry journey home to advise other passengers they may wish to sit further away, as I was recovering from pneumonia. I continue to remain poorly, with further hospital appointments and a predicted recovery of another 3 months. My common sense advice to anyone who knowingly travels with illness is always to act responsibly, as coughs and sneezes spread diseases. To do otherwise shows reckless disregard for the well-being of others.
And now a letter from David Parkinson of Tortland Bay, headlined Housing Plan. There is, of course, a fairly straightforward way to solve the social housing issue, both here on the island and also nationally, but it does require a bit of stick and not too much carrot. The government directs local authorities to complete an up-to-date analysis of housing need for their area. Central government tells planning departments to pass only housing developments which meet social housing need. When these needs are fully met, developers may again apply for consent to build other types of housing. This is the sort of radical shake-up we need to ensure young people and those of limited means can afford to rent or buy housing, and an end to families being forced into just long-term bedsit accommodation.
And from Diana Conyers of Ryde, in 2015, the Isle of Wight Council introduced a new type of support worker known as a local area coordinator. Local area coordinators provide support for vulnerable people in the community, where their needs can be addressed before they become acute, which in turn reduces the pressure on mainstream health and welfare services. There are now local area support workers in almost all parts of the island, and they are providing an invaluable service for large numbers of people. Until recently, the Council has promoted the LAC service as one of its main achievements and encouraged other local authorities to follow its lead. But now there are plans to axe it. Why? To save money, of course. It is yet another example of how cuts to council services are hitting the most vulnerable members of our community. I would urge everyone to fight this cut. If you want to know more about the service and hear what councillors have previously said in support of it.
And now a letter from Mr. and Mrs. Seymour of Sandown, headlined Hospital Parking. We have a problem with parking at St Mary's Hospital. We put the number plate in the machine and it comes up with no plate has been recognised. There are no instructions on what to do next. It is difficult for someone with dyslexia, as all letters and numbers are together, plus the fact you almost have to kneel down to read it. The letters and numbers are so small. Anyone with bad nerves and mental problems must be caused great pain. I am thinking about going to a different hospital.
And time to leave the NHS Trust. This is from W.H. Bromwich of Cowes. Oh dear me, yet another troubling report from yet another medical watchdog. The General Medical Council's report raises numerous concerns, among them very serious allegations by junior doctors of bullying. Bullying of NHS staff is an extremely serious matter, since the potential for unsafe care of patients is a very real prospect, as the report reveals. St Mary's endemic culture of bullying throughout the previous Isle of Wight NHS Trust administration has been widely recognised and aired. Its continuation is simply unacceptable. There is a Chinese proverb which says, "The fish rots from the head." It is now time for the chairman and vice chairman of the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, who have clung to trust involvement by their fingertips from the previous highly discredited regime, to now go, and go immediately.
And now a letter from Mr. John H. Wight of Tortland, headlined, "We all miss Baisley." I do miss Rupert Baisley's cartoons in the county press. Would it be possible to bring out a book containing, say, 100 of the best ones? They could be selected by a team consisting of the artist and yourself. If you act now, you could have the book on sale by Christmas. I myself would certainly buy more than one copy. By the way, some years ago when on holiday in the Scottish Highlands, I came across some comic postcards by Rupert Baisley, so he certainly gets around. And an editor's footnote reads, "We miss Rupert Baisley too, but he is now retired. However, you're in luck, Mr. Wight, as there are 2 books of Baisley cartoons currently available in the county press office, priced at just £1. Perfect for stocking fillers."
And from the trustees of Bembridge Harbour Trust, with reference to the letters from Mr. Thorpe and Mr. Lowe, Bembridge Harbour Trust seeks the application of the law, particularly the 1963 Bembridge Harbour Act and Planning Acts, to ensure the statutory harbour authority's long-term viability, as opposed to separate companies that benefit from its incomes, and over which there is limited statutory control. Our long-standing expectations on how a statutory harbour authority should be run prove in line with the government directives. DFT Ports Good Governance Guidance, March 2018. We consider harbour management fails to comply with 3 principles in the guidance of openness, accountability and fitness for purpose in many ways. Bembridge Harbour Trust makes efforts to ensure the statutory harbour companies' incomes that should be reinvested under Section 31 of the 63 Act are properly calculated and deployed. Our concerns on this are already published and remain unsatisfied. If compliance were to be demonstrated under the current ownership, BHT would consider it a good job well done. However, Mr. Thorpe is unwilling to support his assertions with evidence. We are left to ponder why this might be. So for more information you can visit bembridgeharbourtrust.org.
And still on the subject of Bembridge, show the book, says Miss Penelope Walford, not Mrs. Gully of Bembridge Harbour. In the light of last week's letters on the subject, it's interesting to recall that when Mr. Thorpe first took possession of Bembridge Harbour, he promised an open door, open books regime, and that harbour watchdog Bembridge Harbour Trust actually welcomed him as a white knight. So where did it all go wrong? Mr. Thorpe has a great deal to gain by taking up his early promise and re-establishing that initial trust. It is hard to understand why, if he has nothing to hide, he refuses to show us the books.
And Scottish ferries from Mark Medland of Newbridge. While on holiday in Scotland, we took several ferry trips to the Western Isles via Caledonian McBrain Ferries Limited. They were regular, on-time ferries, and for a comparable distance as the Isle of Wight ferries, were £20 for a car and 2 passengers one way, no matter what time or what date, with bank holidays and pop festivals included. Compare this with Whitelink's variable charges of anywhere between £35 to £110 one way. I was surprised such a disparate range of routes and distances could cost so much less than our own ferry services. So I looked into it a little further. Caledonian McBrain has approximately 35 ferries and 27 routes. Their turnover for last year was £36 million, with a net profit of £5 million. Wight has about 8 ferries and 3 routes. Its turnover for last year was £64 million, with a net profit of £21 million. Surprise, surprise! The share owners of Caledonian McBrain are the Scottish Government, which reinvests its profits back into the company, upgrading its terminals, building the latest green ferries and charging fair prices. Wight is owned by investment companies whose only interest is to maximise as much profit as they can drag out of the island, while providing a poorer service, with crossings being cut at out-of-season times to suit themselves. Should not the Isle of Wight ferries be viewed as the 4th or 7 bridges and be part of our road system? When state-owned Sealink was sold into private ownership, a great disservice was done to the island. It is extremely unlikely we will ever see ownership of Wightlink passing back to the public sector. So if you want to travel on a reliable and fairly priced ferry again, I'm afraid it will mean a trip up to bonny Scotland.
And now a looking back column. And 100 years ago, on October the 26th of 1918, a Cowes man was charged with stealing a spirit drinking glass from the fountain tap in Cowes. The solicitor for the pub told the court that the case had been brought to put a stop to a serious practice where glasses were continually robbed from pubs. The prosecutor had seen the defendant steal the glass while sitting in his living room where he could view the smoking room. And the Isle of Wight mourned after a well-known and loved commander, Lieutenant G.F. Eddis, had died. Lieutenant Eddis was a well-known football player on the island and had a distinguished career in the forces. He died of pneumonia at 33.
75 years ago, a Newport boy went to Buckingham Palace to receive a medal from the King in memory of his father. Roy William Curling, 14, travelled to London with his grandfather and received the military award for his late father, Lance Corporal Curling. The citation stated he had shown great bravery in the war. It was a family celebration when parents in Newport welcomed home both their sons from the war. Mr. and Mrs. Maybe's oldest son, John, had been training with the RAF, and their youngest, Cecil, had been captured in Crete in 1941.
And 50 years ago, on October the 19th, 1968, Newport Borough Council announced its intentions to go ahead with plans to build 58 three-bedroomed homes in Pan. The plan was to cost more than £175,000. The traffic problems likely to be caused by the build, along with the cost being well over the budget, led to multiple councillors leaving the meeting. And also the Assistant County Medical Officer for the island, Dr. D. Quantrail, headed to Nigeria as part of a medical relief team. Widespread malnutrition had been caused by the Biafran War, and Dr. Quantrail was granted 6 months' leave to accompany Christian Aid on the mission. He was chosen because of his diploma in tropical diseases.
And 25 years ago, beachcombing Carisbrooke High School pupils discovered more than £100,000 worth of cocaine when they stumbled across a small box in Atherfield. The 3 girls, aged 13 and 15, found a package in green tape while walking just east of Shepherd's Chine. On opening, they discovered a box soaked in seawater containing a white powder. The closure of Chale Primary School was put forward as a possible option for when the future of Chale, Chillerton and God's Hill primary schools were discussed. The suggested options from Education Director Dr. Williams came as a shock to the governors of the three schools. Chairman of Chale, Reverend John Russell, said, "We do not take the closure threat as a serious option at all."
And 10 years ago, on October the 24th, 2008, patients were sleeping on sofas because of a lack of beds at 7 Acres, the county press revealed, just months after the island was branded the lowest performing county for mental health care in the region. Health bosses admitted island mental health services had been pushed to the limit by unprecedented demand. And island school children lagged well behind the national average in the PE league. Only 86% of children did 2 hours of PE or after-school sports a week, compared to 90% nationwide. The Isle of Wight Council said they were making steps to remedy this. And also 10 years ago, Angela Simpkins and Debbie Hansford, who swam 1,146 lengths of Medina Pool, which is equivalent to 22 miles, or the English Channel, for the spinal injury charity Aspire.
And now we're going to move on to Wight Memories, and it's entitled My First Job. And Arithmetic and Pork Pies. This is Joy Edmonds. Joy Edmonds recalls her first job working at Woolworths, and Susan Bull remembers her time making pork pies at farmers' dairies during the summer of 1961. Islanders responded to a county press request for information about their first jobs on the Isle of Wight Heritage Group Facebook page. Joy Edmonds, 65, of East Cowes, said, "My first job was in Woolworths in Newport. This was in 1968. It was very hard work, and we really had to have a good mental arithmetic brain. The till was very basic then, and it was all very regimental. When closing, at the first bell, we stood in front of our till, and then we put cash in a bag when the second bell rang, and finally we could leave when the third bell rang. We really had to respect our elders in those days. I was on the electric counter. Everything was sold separately then. 1 fuse, 1 bulb, flex sold by the yard, etc. In 1969, we had to learn about decimalisation, and that was quite a challenge, having used pounds, shillings and pence. Susan Bull recalled her first job. She said, in 1961, I had a summer job at farmers' dairies making pork pies. I was a plunger plonker and a pricker on about £9 a week. It involved putting the meat in the pies and then putting the pastry lid on the top when they were cooked. Then in the afternoon we put the jelly on top. Anyone who would like to share their stories of their first job can email James W at Isle of Wight owcpmail.co.uk or write to the county press.
And with the First World War armistice centenary approaching, a county press reader shared some pictures of his grandmother who served as a Red Cross nurse. Rosa May of Yarmouth served at Northwood House, where an auxiliary hospital had been set up to treat wounded soldiers. During the Second World War, Rosa, who had by then married Navy man Charlie Lansdowne, served as an air raid warden at the Mount, Yarmouth, where she was a member of the house staff. And the County Press would like to thank Mike Smith for sharing those images.
Charlie's Lifetime Collection. A Lifetime's collection of photographs and postcards by Cowes resident, the late Charles Taylor, has gone on display at Regatta House in an exhibition organised by Cowes Heritage. The latest exhibition by Cowes Heritage gives a unique look at the history of the town through one man's collection of photographs and postcards. Charles Taylor was a long-standing Cowes resident who throughout his life collected items of local interest. These items were passed on to Cowes Heritage, which opened an exhibition last Saturday, October the 20th, at Regatta House, Bath Road. Charles's Lifetime collection displays just some of the many photographs and postcards collected by Mr. Taylor over the years. The varied subjects include Cowes seafront scenes, plus local buildings and damage in the Second World War. Also displayed are pictures that had belonged to another resident, the late Bernard Taylor, no relation. Jointly opening the exhibition as a special preview reception were two authors of island history, Brian Greening and Bill Shepherd. Cowes Heritage Chairman George Chasney praised the work of John Groves and his wife Maureen, who until they stepped down earlier this year had been vital members of the Cowes Heritage since its formation. The Charlie's Lifetime Collection exhibition is open daily from 10 till 4 until Sunday, November 11th. Admission is free.
And now we move on to the My View column, which this week, the first of which comes from Jonathan Young, and it's headlined, Behaviour which doesn't bear scrutiny. This is no more than an educated guess, but I reckon there must be a 3-line whip out on the Isle of Wight Council's great and good to show their faces when controversial decisions get a second look by the important scrutiny committee. It's the least implausible explanation I can think of for Councillor Ian Ward's baffling response when outed on social media studying an online advert for gents' trousers, while colleagues all around him were dutifully getting their teeth into the future of the island's fire and rescue service. With either refreshing candour or a boneheaded lack of political nous and or civic responsibility, you decide, Councillor Ward, Conservative, Sandown South, majority 177, explained that he didn't really need to be at the 3-hour meeting because the fire service wasn't much to do with him. But, like most of the cabinet, I went, and he tried to use his time productively. Hence the trouser advert, as well as an apparent catnap, obvious when you think about it. And Councillor Ward is of course perfectly correct when he says the fire service isn't his brief. His brief is transport, his towering achievement to date, bringing the Cowes Floating Bridge project so faultlessly to fruition that it's become a byword for reliability, as far away as the Fairley Road traffic jam. The more I think about it, the more puzzling I find it that matters of life and death, such as fire and rescue, haven't been entrusted to him. Seriously though, what a mercy it is, the scrutiny of councillors and what they're up to isn't left entirely to internal mechanisms, such as the committee which Councillor Ward appears to have attended in body only. That technology has brought us to a point where Joe Soap in the public gallery, the territorial paparazzi if you will, armed with nothing more than a mobile phone, can catch politicians with their trousers down and publish their indiscretions to the world in seconds. This is not how some politicians want it to be, and that should surprise no one. The resistance to real public scrutiny of their behaviour, to the use of social media as a tool of that scrutiny, is alive and well, championed in a number of lower tier councils across the island, where the 2011 Localism Act has created a dangerous regulatory vacuum. In Sandown, a decision has been made to boycott social media in favour of the proper channels, unquote, whatever they are. In Bembridge, the official parish council Facebook page has been peremptorily closed down, without any apparent thought having been given to the fact that Facebook abhors a vacuum. Enter the spoofers amid much hilarity. Even at the Isle of Wight Council, though, Councillor Ward isn't the first to be exposed multitasking his way through a council meeting. The fact that nothing at all seems to have happened to his colleague, Councillor Chris Whitehouse, for similar antics means there's little incentive for either of them, or anyone else, to learn their lesson, unless and until someone explains to them that turning up on its own doesn't really cut the mustard. As if to prove the point, Councillor Ward, sporting his new rhinoceros skin suit with matching brass neck armour, available for next day delivery on Amazon Prime, turned up at Cabinet 48 hours after his shop and snooze to rubber stamp the oh-so-boring fire service decision. In the absence of some proper opprobrium from elsewhere, I see a real danger that the reaction to the literal oversight of councillors from the County Hall Public Gallery will be to change the seating plan rather than the miscreant's behaviour. That would be a good outcome for only a few people.
And no better way to spend a Saturday. There are things in life you don't realise you're missing out on. I still steadfastly refuse to enjoy Queen, Coldplay or Phil Collins, and I will have no truck with musical theatre. But it was an error of omission which, until this year, had seen me fail to take part in beer and buses. Thankfully, a bunch of reprobates of my acquaintance from the West Wight corrected this oversight as they dragged me, kicking and screaming, down to Newport Quay on a Saturday afternoon. I should explain the Magnificent Seven from Totland and Freshwater, plus a foolhardy lady called Ali, are known to like a pint or 10, but I never had them down as public transport enthusiasts. So it was sheer happenstance. Key organiser and real ale connoisseur Tim Marshall lived up to his surname by ushering us onto a London Transport double-decker going to Ryde. Some of the mates hailed from the capital and were soon chin-wagging about the 321 to Kilburn or some suburb. Then they made the mistake of trying to out-Cockney the Clippy by commenting on the bus being a classic route master. You might as well have questioned the marital status of his parents, but he recovered his composure to tell them it was not a route master, but a smaller, earlier version of the Red London bus. We reached the Ryde Bus Museum to find it packed with punters, going hither and thither, but thirst was getting to us, and we made our way to the railway pub, which had done a fantastic job of laying on at least 10 ales and ciders, which could be sipped in third pint snifters. Carefully selected by my personal beer sommelier and group leader, Steve, the nicest man in Totland, but also the thirstiest. We missed out on the Bloodstone Morris performance as we made our way via another bus to the lovely village inn in Bembridge, where they had put on a beer festival. By this point, things were getting a little hazy, and we went off-piste to return to Newport in a taxi for fantastic musical courtesy of Donald and Charlie Ryan at the Key Arts, and another pint at the Ale House, where I chatted to a couple who had brought a bus down from Durham for the weekend. Hate to think of the fare, while my mate and landlord, Rod, told me he thought 15,000 people had taken part. I have rambled long enough, but my point is, this was one of the most wonderful weekends you could imagine. The atmosphere was friendly, bus bods and other volunteers tremendously knowledgeable, and the Isle of Wight's beleaguered licensed trade had pulled out all the stops to make the most of this manna from heaven. Cheers for the beers and buses.
And moving on now to the Behind the News column, which is written by David Newble and is headlined Learning Life Skills for On and Off the Water. It has been a feature of island life for more than 30 years. Founded by MFI entrepreneur Noel Lister in 1987, thousands of young people have learned how to sail and launched careers in the maritime industry over the past 3 decades. But even if the young and not so young people who pass through UKSA's doors every year do not aim for jobs in the leisure boat industry, the skills and confidence they learn while on the water can set them up for life. The Academy counts among its supporters Olympic gold medalist Shirley Robertson and round-the-world yachtswoman Dame Ellen MacArthur, and has as its patron the Princess Royal, Princess Anne. One of the most important schemes the Academy runs is the Test the Water programme, which offers half a day of free sailing for all Island Year 6 children. According to 2015 government statistics, more than 40% of the Isle of Wight's 44 primary schools are located within the most deprived areas of the UK, with 14% being in the top 20% most deprived areas. Alarmingly, research published by the Education Policy Institute in 2018 shows the average attainment gap nationally between disadvantaged pupils and their more affluent peers was more than 18 months in state-funded schools. This figure rises to 27 months on the Isle of Wight, more than anywhere else in England. UKSA believes part of the solution to this is to offer young people opportunities to participate in engaging extracurricular activities to broaden their horizons and allow them to develop life skills in line with their more affluent peers. On the Isle of Wight, the charity is trying to help address this experience and life skills imbalance and subsequent attainment gap by providing funded opportunities for all Year 6 children to participate in sailing and water sports sessions at the UKSA through the Test the Water programme. It has more than 30 years' experience of delivering water sports and sailing activities to young people, and its programmes are designed to develop confidence and soft skills of participants. The Test the Water programme offers youngsters the chance to participate in a half-day sailing or water sports session, as well as covering aspects of water safety, vital for children living on an island. These sessions are designed to develop confidence and key skills including communication, resilience and teamwork through putting learners out of their comfort zone in a safe and supportive environment. In addition to the obvious learning benefits, the charity believes the Test the Water programme helps in terms of breaking down barriers on the island. Sailing is often viewed as an elitist sport, and UKSA is seeking to challenge this stigma locally, providing all youngsters with the opportunity to experience the thrill of sailing and water sports, regardless of their background. To date, 3,764 young people have participated in the Test the Water programme, and by the end of the 2018-19 academic year, all secondary school pupils on the Isle of Wight should have had the opportunity to experience sailing. It's also working hard to ensure free or subsidised follow-on opportunities are available for interested students, through programmes such as Polly's Challenge and after-school clubs. But it's not just Year 6 pupils who are able to take advantage of the facilities offered by the Academy. The National Citizens Service, the NCS programme, offers the chance for 16 and 17-year-olds the chance to develop their self-confidence and skills in a programme which is sponsored by the government. As well as youth training courses, UKSA also offers industry-leading career courses such as the Super Yacht Cadetship.
Since graduating from Phase 1 of the cadetship, Megan Jones from the Isle of Wight has been part of the crew on a yacht. She said she had thoroughly enjoyed all the elements of this, including painting and on-board maintenance. She said, "Before coming to UKSA, I was studying A-levels in biology, chemistry and maths at the sixth form campus. Friends of mine had done courses at UKSA, and as I wanted a career at sea, I decided to see what was on offer. I received funding from Trinity House and never looked back. I wanted to prove I could do just as well as the men in this male-dominated industry. My massive passion for sailing drove me to try my hardest at everything. While out at sea, we spent a lot of time on the 45-foot yachts, learning how to sail. We began with simple processes such as how to rig the boat, but we have now developed into confident sailors. We often took turns being the skipper. Much of our time was spent on the Solent, getting ready for our Yachtmaster offshore practical exam, and we travelled down to Falmouth to cross over to France. I have had a fantastic time sailing. Once a pod of dolphins swam with the boat. I have had the best 6 months and have made the most amazing friends. My best experience was the Far trip, 9 days of non-stop sailing. We had an outstanding crew, always keeping each other positive and helping each other out. If I was to give advice to someone following the same career path as me, I would say try your hardest at everything, because you don't know who's on watch. And if a door opens, go through it. You don't know where it might lead." UKSA Chief Executive Ben Willows said, "UKSA welcomes almost 10,000 people each year through our doors from all across the UK. But we know where our home is. Based on the island, it's important to all of us. First and foremost, young islanders benefit from the resource on their doorstep. That's why we launched the Test the Water programme 4 years ago, benefiting to date more than 4,000 island children. It's why we partner with the Isle of Wight College, and it's why UKSA is the island provider of the National Citizen Service."
And now news of a week of events run by the Mountbatten Hospice, headlined "Week of Events to Help Us Face Up to Our Deaths." A series of events is being launched next week to challenge the taboo subject of death. Mountbatten has announced the Art of Dying Well, a week of events to explore the subject of death, dying and bereavement through the performing arts from Monday to Sunday, November the 4th. The festival is aimed at encouraging people to talk openly about death and dying, challenging the taboo and supporting people to have healthy conversations about the one sure thing that affects us all. The programme has been created by the end-of-life experts at Mountbatten, with associates from the arts, commerce and all corners of the community. Nigel Hartley, Mountbatten Chief Executive, said, "For many of us, Death and dying are taboo subjects that we brush under the carpet, and most of all, fear. Fear, denial and lack of knowledge may get in the way of dying well. Planning our exit ahead means less uncertainty where we have choices, and for those we leave behind, more comfort knowing they will be carrying out our wishes. I hope this first edition of The Art of Dying Well will encourage more people to start having more important conversations using the medium of arts and performance. I would like to thank the wide range of people who have supported us this week to make it happen, and because we believe it is such a vital issue, we are expecting to build on it in future and make it an annual event. Some events are listed below, and further information and the full programme can be found online. On Monday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Key Arts in Newport, an acoustic open mic night, giving an opportunity to think about songs you would want played at your funeral. On Tuesday 2 p.m, Mountbatten Ventnor at 16 Pearse Street, death chat and any related issues. Wednesday 7 p.m, Newport Minster, Mountbatten Festival concert featuring Mountbatten Community Choir, directed by Mountbatten music therapist Fraser Simpson, soprano Olivia Simpson and other musicians. Submit your favourite poem based on the theme of living, dying, remembering, either one you've written or one you love, and it could be read at the concert. Send to Marion Tasker, Mountbatten Community Artist, by emailing marion.tasker@mountbatten.org.uk by Tuesday, including your full name, contact details and why you have felt inspired to write your piece. On Wednesday 3 p.m. at Mountbatten Shanklin and 63 Regent Street, death chat and any related issues. On Thursday 11 a.m. to 6 p.m, Lord Louis Library in Newport, plan your future care. Start the conversation now and complete your Mountbatten Advanced Care Plan.
On Thursday, 3 p.m, Mountbatten Freshwater Avenue Road, death chat and any related issues. Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m, Key Arts, Newport, open mic poetry. Join Wight Lines for an open mic All Hallows Day special. Storytelling by Steph Britton and others on the themes of living, dying, remembering. Next Friday, November the 2nd, 2 p.m, Key Arts, Newport, Bounce Back Boy by Brian Daniels, a play that explores the multiple challenges that arise when a young person with complex needs is dying. Next Friday, November the 2nd, 7 p.m, Ventnor Arts Club, Island by Steve Eastwood, a film which is a must for anyone who expects to die. A sensitive portrayal of death told through the stories of staff and people, supported by Mountbatten. And tickets are from the Ventnor Arts Club. Friday, November the 2nd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, Cowes Yacht Haven, Mountbatten Annual Conference, exploring the ways in which care of the dying is changing and how health and social care professionals must rapidly adapt to cater for the needs of our ageing population. Speakers include health commentator Roy Lilly. In its free entry for the first 100 places, tickets are £75 each thereafter, and you can book at mountbatten.org.uk.
And that's all we have time for this week, so it's goodbye from me, Stephen.
And goodbye from me, Jan.
Bye.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Tonight, how Scotland intends to reform the way visually impaired people are assessed for benefits, and why this campaign has got some blind Australians hopping mad.
How much would you sell your eyes for? Both of my eyes.
Both of your eyes.
A dollar value. My eyes.
The participants react with shock to the question.
Would that involve me not having my eyes?
Correct.
And we'll hear how the company Specsavers answers criticisms of that video a little later in the programme. But first, for the past 5 years, blind people of working age throughout the UK have systematically been transferred from one benefit, Disability Living Allowance or DLA, to PIPs or Personal Independence Payments. Both benefits are intended to compensate people for the additional living costs of their disability. But the government has always maintained that the new one, PIPs, with its face-to-face interviews with assessors, would achieve fairer results based on actual need. Critics say this often isn't the case because the assessors from private contractors frequently have little specialist knowledge about disability, including visual impairment. Well, now Scotland, which has just taken control of administering 11 state benefits, including DLA and PIPs, says it wants to change all this, not least the repeated assessments of claimants whose disability is unchanging and unlikely ever to improve. Our reporter Ian Hamilton has been hearing from someone who's in exactly this position.
I have no vision. For various reasons, I had to have my left eye removed in 2016 and my right eye removed in 2017. So I have no vision because I have no eyes.
That was Hazel McFarlane. She says given the medical evidence, it'd be a sheer medical miracle should she regain any of her vision. So she was surprised when she was pulled in for a medical assessment. Given that evidence,
I hadn't completed a form since, completing the Disability Living Allowance form, really, which I felt was quite negative. But actually the PIP form, I felt had a really negative slant to it. And then when I went to the interview, they went through fairly much all the questions that had been in the application form. But they asked, it's almost like everything, they didn't filter anything out. So they asked about personal care, which wasn't an issue. So during the interview, they said to me, we have to check your vision. And I said to her, but I've actually told you all along that I have no useful vision. And she said, oh, but I have to do it anyway. So she said, I'm going to hand you an eye chart. And so she handed me an eye chart and said, what can you see? And I said to her, well, I can feel that it's a rectangular shape. I can feel that it's laminated, but I can't actually tell you what it says on it because I have no useful vision. And the assessor responded to me by saying, can you turn it over and tell me what you can see on the other side? Which now, when I sort of tell that story at dinner parties, we just laugh. But actually at the time it was just really deeply upsetting because the questions of the interview are so negative, and I'm a sort of real can-do person. I don't really focus on what I can't do. I always look at what I can. So actually to go in and be talking for like a good hour to 2 hours about what you can't do, actually, by the end of it, you come out just questioning your own competence. So actually, at the time, to be asked what I could see on an eye chart just actually felt really humiliating.
No temptation to take your glass eye out and go, I still can't see anything.
I was so tempted to pop out my prosthetic and say, how much do you think that can see? Because it's made of acrylic. They look great. I mean, people would not know that my eyes are prosthetics. They're amazing.
The temptation to be facetious is always quite high.
Yeah.
Under new powers, the Scottish Government have taken control over 11 welfare benefits, including attendance allowance, disability living allowance and personal independent payments. The Scottish Government say they want to take a different approach from the current system, so have invited 2,000 people with disabilities to help shape a new welfare system for Scotland. Shirley Ann Somerville is the Scottish Government's Cabinet Secretary for Social Security and Older People. She says constantly reassessing people who don't need to be reassessed is expensive and unnecessary. And she also agrees that dignity should be at the centre of any new system.
I get really struck when I'm speaking to people who have been through particularly DLA or PIP assessments, where they talk about fighting a system, where they talk about having to make sure that they're not getting caught out by the forms or by a face-to-face assessment. And we need to build a system that's actually there to support people, where people feel supported to go through that process, rather than a system that's trying to catch people out. So that has to be radically different to what we're experiencing at the moment.
But it is going to take some time for this agency to come in. And one of the criticisms, it could be, 2021 before people in Scotland are officially moved over. And by that point, those who are moved over to PIP will have been done. So in a sense, the dirty work will have been done for you.
I feel that frustration from people very strongly, and I really do understand it. But my top priority has to be that safe and secure transition, because we're starting our agency off. It's only 1 month old and we need to build that process up. But I really do appreciate where people are coming from. And that's why we've asked the UK government to halt the migration over to PIP, because it is a system that's broken and it's a system that people don't have faith in.
The assessments in Scotland will be carried out by the new Department of Social Security. No private companies will be involved, and face-to-face interviews will only be carried out if there is no strong medical evidence to support applications.
Why would I claim that I had no useful vision if in fact I did? The medical evidence would have backed all of that up. The only sort of saving grace for me with the PIP process was that when my sight went down totally in 2007, it never actually occurred to me to contact DWP and make them aware of that. So when I was reassessed, my level of award was increased. So in that respect, that was quite positive, but the actual process was really, really negative.
The Scottish Government says they don't have a figure yet on how much money will be saved when they introduce the new system in 2021.
That report by Ian Hamilton. For other parts of the UK, the Department for Work and Pensions has told us that they too are bringing in new guidance, which will mean that people who are awarded the highest level of support under PIP, where their needs are expected to stay the same or increase, will receive an ongoing award for PIP with a light touch review every 10 years. Now, the rise in numbers of school leavers moving on to university has inevitably meant more visually impaired students too. Now, if my memory serves me right, and it is a while ago, those first few weeks at uni can be pretty daunting as you try to cope with a mass of new information in universities, some of which are the size of a small town. Christiana Zunde has been at the University of Huddersfield for just a couple of weeks now. She's studying music journalism, and as a prelude to keeping an eye on the new intake of visually impaired students this year, here's just a flavour of Christiana's early university days as she recorded them for us. She seems to have hit the party scene early.
So I'm currently at a flat party I was invited to by a friend. That's some of the social side at university I do. Go to flat parties. Some maybe calmer things include going to Wetherspoons, or there's a place called Rhubarb which I go to when we have music society social nights. But yeah, this is quite rowdy actually, but I guess that's what student flat parties are all about.
So my name's Christiana. I'm a music journalism student at the University of Huddersfield. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the course that I'm doing and how I'm finding it and how it's working out for me. The music journalism students are doing 6 different modules. Some of them tie within each other, so we've got something called users and industries. We talk about different industries and cultures and audiences and how, all of those things are affected. Another module that we do is technology. Technology is mainly about social media and big companies. And then the other 3 modules that I have are audio and video production. So at the moment we're doing audio, so that's based around interviews, podcasts, things like that. Writing for media and storytelling is another module, which is one of my favourite modules. I mean, I love writing. It's part of the reason why I'm on this course in the first place. That's a fun one. We get a writing exercise every week, so Last week we had to do like a news report. The week before we did a biography as it would look like on our employer's website. So it's really fun. I just love writing, so that's why I love that module.
Christiana Zunde, and we're going to be looking in a bit more depth into university life in the near future. So do contact us, either if you're starting out yourself or perhaps you feel you have suggestions that might help, particularly things you wish you'd known when you started. Now, the eye tests that you take to get your next pair of glasses is a good way to spot early signs of eye disease. Well, that much is scientifically certain. So what could be more logical than for a company like Specsavers to point this out to potential customers? But just how far do you go with that? Well, in Specsavers' case, quite a long way. As part of a campaign recently launched in Australia and New Zealand, they set up what looked in the ad like a genuine medical research company, Vesper Sachs. Get it? Anagram of Specsavers, complete with premises, a brochure and a detailed back history, and told would-be research subjects that they were interested in the financial value people put on their eyes. In this audio-described short film, this is how people reacted.
A young woman's eyes well up with tears.
The thought of never seeing my partner's face again or my family and stuff I need my eyes.
I'm only 21, so I haven't seen much of the world.
I don't know a price, I'm sorry.
You can't really put a price on your sight.
The tension between using powerful and emotive images about the loss of sight set against its effect on people who believe they are living successfully with blindness is something we've explored with blindness charities on the programme before. But do commercial companies have the same kind of responsibility? Well, judging by the angry and indignant reactions that followed the launch of the Your Eyes Are Priceless campaign, a lot of blind Australians think that they do. These included lawyer and parent Fiona Woods, who felt strongly enough about it to post her views on Specsavers Australia's Facebook page. We would have liked Specsavers to have debated the issue with her, but they said no one was available to talk to us. But they did send us more information about their reasons for the campaign and their reaction to the hostile comments from blind people. So we've brought you a synthesis of Fiona's post, recorded for us by her, Specsavers' statement and the audio-described short film. Make up your own minds.
I first saw your ad while eating breakfast with my children, who had to describe it to me. I felt angry, ashamed, disgusted and depressed. Over the following days, I have read your comments, conveying your astonishment that blind people find the ad offensive and your suggestions that we should embrace the message as being in the public good. I have a law degree. I have more children than many. I've been a community councillor. I'm a wife and a company director. I get excited at my sons and daughters' soccer matches and am delighted by their dance concerts. I've travelled and lived around the world. According to your ad, everything I have done should have been impossible. I'm totally blind. Your ad tells me that although I think I've achieved a lot, really, the sighted world is just letting me play along.
Specsavers in Australia and New Zealand works in close collaboration with ophthalmology, glaucoma, diabetes and macular degeneration bodies, with an absolute commitment to reducing preventable vision loss across the Australian and New Zealand communities. Together, we believe that no one should have to experience preventable vision loss or blindness. Through this campaign, Specsavers wants to drive awareness of the importance of routine eye tests to save sight.
My parents chose to have my eyes removed before I was 2, so that I would not die of cancer. I always thought it was a good decision. Your ad would suggest otherwise. Growing up as a blind child and as a blind adult, I have been required on a regular basis to explain that my life is not dark or black or empty, in classrooms, at job interviews, at parties, on platforms and at the shops. Each of us faces the chance, on a daily basis, of meeting a stranger who will question how we dress ourselves, how we spend our time, or why we think we should be allowed to take care of children. We are pitied and prayed for and grabbed at. Our partners are told how lucky we are to have them. Our children are congratulated on how well they take care of us. Potential employers ask us how we will get to work, how will we do the job, and how we will fit in. Relentlessly, day after day, we answer as well and as politely as we can, and we work and we study and we train so that the right answers are given, so that we can claim our right to participate and belong. We tell ourselves that our hours of community education and our contributions to society won't go unnoticed. And then we wake up one morning to see an ad which tells us that people would not accept any amount of money to live the lives we live.
I couldn't, I've got a family. I need to be able to see my kids dance. My boys play soccer.
This advertisement is in keeping with other campaigns Specsavers has delivered in the Australian and New Zealand markets in its attempt to raise awareness of eye health and encourage people to get their eyes tested regularly. The Australian government estimates vision impairment will emerge as the most prevalent health condition among older people over the coming years as the population ages.
I don't say blind people don't wish they weren't blind, just as poor people wish they were rich, or refugees wish their countries weren't war zones. You could have asked some people with advanced eye disease what their lives were like. They might have said that it's hard to pick faces out in a crowd, or to read the numbers of buses. This at least would have acknowledged that they still have friends and they still can get around, but the message might not have been so sensational and would not have given the same boost to your profits. In community education campaigns, it's customary to ask people who have been affected, people suffering the disease, or family members of accident victims. You have not asked any blind people what our lives are like, but have asked people to use their imaginations. Where facts are absent, imagination can quickly fill in the gaps by drawing on fear, ignorance and prejudice. Imagination is unreliable as a basis for education.
We wanted to create something powerful and meaningful to get people to stop and think about their eye health. Our brand, known for its cheeky communications, created Vespa sacks and asked what price Australians and New Zealanders would put on their site. The results were unanimous. Our eyes are priceless. While other Specsavers advertisements use humour as a primary means of communication, this advertisement does not use humour or make light of the very serious issue of vision loss. Rather, the tone is one of seriousness as the actors in the advertisement reflect on their own emotion and the seriousness of vision loss. While we're upset to hear that some people who have personal experience of blindness or vision loss have concerns or are unhappy with this campaign, such feelings by individuals does not mean that the advertisement vilifies the vision impaired or questions the validity and effectiveness of a life without vision. Rather, the advertisement solely seeks to raise community awareness in order to seek to encourage Australians and New Zealanders to take steps aimed at preventing the occurrence of preventable vision loss.
And there you heard Fiona Woods, Specsavers views, read for us by a BBC staff member, and the audio-described campaign video, courtesy of the San Francisco Lighthouse for the Blind. And that's it for today. You can contact our action line for 24 hours after the programme on 0800 044 044 or email in touch at bbc.co.uk. And you can click on Contact Us on our website, from where you can also download tonight's and many previous editions of the programme. We warmly welcome our new producer, Lee Kumatat, who's an Australian. And if you think you're going to get that many Australians on every week, forget it. Goodbye.